What's going on, everybody? It's Andrew again, and today's video is going to be discussing the differences in difficulty between Demon Souls, Dark Souls, and Dark Souls 2. As well, at the end, I'm going to ask all of your opinion about something, but we'll get to that later, and it's going to be fairly simple anyway, so we'll get to it later. So, difficulty. I was watching a stream. It was more of a recording of a stream, where the streamer was asked the question of how they viewed the difficulty difference between Demon Souls, Dark Souls, and Dark Souls 2. And the order that the streamer gave wasn't really important, except for the fact that he brought up that people are going to say that his view that one game was harder than Demon Souls, would be met with some, backlash and controversy, because most people consider Demon Souls to be the hardest game in the series. And he said that a lot of people consider Dark Souls 2 to be the easiest, most casual experience in the series. That's something I actually agree with. It is the easiest and most casual experience in the series. And I'm going to address why he thinks that it's a controversy to bring up Demon Souls being harder, and as well the fact that he said that if you think Dark Souls 2 is easy, then play through it with the Champions Covenant or Bonfire Ascetics, or go through multiple new games and challenge yourself by, say, only using magic or whatever. And while that does increase the difficulty, it's increasing the difficulty because you're choosing to increase the difficulty. You're choosing to make the game harder on yourself. The game itself isn't any harder. You're making it harder. And in Demon Souls, it's very different. The game is already hard on its own. It doesn't need a Champions Covenant. It doesn't need Bonfire Ascetics. And it does have a much steeper difficulty increase with New Game Plus, at least the first one. I'm pretty sure I heard that when you beat the game and start New Game Plus, the difficulty spike is 40%. So basically, every enemy's health, defense, attack, aggressiveness goes up by that amount. And then by another 8% per new game after that, up to New Game Plus 7, where it stops. And so that's what I'm saying. The fact that Demon Souls doesn't need a Champions Covenant, it doesn't need a Bonfire Ascetic system, and you shouldn't have to force yourself to play with a handicap to make it hard, is precisely why it's the hardest game in the series. A couple of people in the community have mentioned that FromSoft's B team that made Dark Souls 2 seemed to think that difficulty means adding more numbers of enemies. And that's never more evident than in the latest DLC, where you face an invader, and I'm not going to try to spoil it too much, but you'll know what I mean when you reach an invader named Prowlers. So look out for that. And it's the truth that they thought that the way to make the game more difficult was to add more enemies. In the case of bosses like the Throne Watcher and the Throne Defender, 2 enemies in 1. Or in the first DLC, where you got the Gank Squad boss fight. Or the Dark Lurker boss, where it splits into 2. Or in New Game Plus, when you face against the Flexile Sentry and also the Lost Sinner. They just add enemies. In the case of the Flexile Sentry, it's Shadow Warriors, I guess is what they're called. They wear the Shadow set. And in case of the Lost Sinner, it's 2 Black Phantom Pyromancers. And that's their version of what difficulty is. And I maintain that if you already know how to fight and beat an enemy because you've faced them enough times, then adding more isn't going to be much of a challenge increase for you, because you'll just use the same strategies multiple times, and it usually works. Demon Souls, it did add more enemies as the game got harder, which it happened when your world tendency would go down. If you died in human form, then the game would get harder progressively, from a neutral gray state to a pure black state, in which every enemy has more health, more defense, hits harder, and Black Phantom enemies are added into the mix. And imagine playing the game for the first time and not knowing anything about the tendency, and you're sitting there dying and dying and dying. Then all of a sudden the enemies hit you harder, and you start going through an area you think you've got down pat, only to find that there's a new Black Phantom in there, and he's harder than every other enemy you've come across. And that's the kind of difficulty that Demon's Souls introduced. Now, it's possible that nostalgia is clouding my judgment, but I still maintain the fact that because Demon's Souls was difficult without any need of multiple extra mechanics to make it more difficult, that it is the hardest game in the series. And Dark Souls 2 is definitely the easiest game in the series. I'm sorry, but that's just the truth. The very fact that using fists is so effective in Dark Souls 2, on the one hand, it makes sense because you should be able to level up your fist base attack power with strength. And on the other hand, try playing a fist build in Demon's Souls. Just try it. You won't get very far without frustration. You can beat the game in a fist build, of course, only if you're very determined. Because fist damage in Demon's Souls, even with fist weapons, is nothing to be happy about. Because typically speaking, the best fist weapon in Demon's Souls, the Hands of God, are slow. And the R2 attack does knock enemies down, but again, if it's slow, then that just opens you up to enemies just stun locking you, because there's no poise in Demon's Souls. And that's another thing about Demon's Souls that makes it more difficult. There's no poise system. You get hit once, you're locked. You get hit multiple times, you're dead. So you have to either figure out a way of getting out of the stun lock, and there is a trick to it, or you have to avoid getting hit altogether. And that keeps you on your toes, especially in PvP. You're constantly trying to avoid getting hit. That's why spamming isn't necessarily prevalent too much in Demon's Souls, but it is in Dark Souls and Dark Souls 2, thanks to the poise system. People think that they can just wail on somebody and be wailed on easily. Whereas in Demon's Souls, that wasn't a problem. You would... actually, I think I have that wrong. I do have that wrong. Stun locking, because it was such a big deal, caused a lot of spamming. That's the truth. Especially with the Blue Blood sword. I can't believe I missed that. I'm slipping. I'm getting older. So anyways, as I was saying, Demon's Souls has a lot to it. Now, it's possible because of, design refinements in the future that these things have changed. But Demon's Souls has a lot to it that makes it much more difficult than the other two Souls games, bar none. And like going back to fist damage, in Dark Souls, you could have your fist damage upped if you changed into a dragon. I think the fist damage was I want to say 450 base once you change into a dragon. I might be wrong about that. I do remember seeing it's 4 something. And of course in Dark Souls 2, not only has the base damage gone up, but you could also power stance fist weapons or use the Vanquisher's Seal by joining the Covenant of Champions and farming Black Phantoms to power stance your bare fists, which is far more effective than power stancing fist weapons. So I always like to think that the best way to see the actual difficulty of Demon's Souls over the other two Souls games is to try a playthrough wearing no armor and just using your fists. Then you'll see how difficult it is, especially if your world is in pure black. So the idea that Dark Souls 2 even compares to Demon's Souls because of systems like the Covenant of Champions and the Bonfire Ascetic, and forcing yourself to say play with the ladle, I'm sorry, I don't agree with that. That's just a way of you having to force yourself to make the game harder, to make the game more challenging, and I don't think that that's a good way to design a game. And I know I'm not the only one. A German spy touched on this in a few of his videos. There's more than one, so I'm not going to be able to link just one. So I invite you to go check his channel and watch them for yourself. They're good videos anyway. What? You have a problem with Spy? You better not. Anyway, so yeah, that's my opinion on the difficulty of the games. I don't consider Dark Souls 2 to be difficult at all, actually. I consider it to be pretty easy. I consider it also to have some pretty wonky hitboxes, which means that sometimes it can be cheap. So that's artificial difficulty, if you want to call it that. Dark Souls 1, I would say it's in the middle. It's got some difficulty to it, and it doesn't require you to force yourself to make it harder to play, but it's not as hard as Demon Souls in my estimation. But again, maybe it's nostalgia talking. I started with Demon Souls, and I still consider it to be the best game in the series in every way. My favorite character is from that game, Old King Dorn. And I'll make a video maybe talking about him in the future. But for now, those are my thoughts on the difficulty of the games. And I know I've been, kind of mumbling and muttering and stuff like that. I'm sorry about that. I'm still getting used to doing this kind of thing. So I hope you can be a bit forgiving of my shortcomings. So now it's on to the opinion part. I kind of wrote about this in a description, but I think it's best if I talk about it. And what I'm talking about is the fact that I can't really post gameplay videos. And the reason for that is because to even use the lowest possible capture device for my PS3 to upload gameplay footage requires me to have a new computer, because right now I'm using a laptop and the CPU power is only 1.6 gigahertz, and the lowest of low-end capture devices I've ever seen has a minimum requirement of 1.8 gigahertz. Now I'm not exactly a computer expert, so I don't know if that means that I could still go out and get it and upload some footage and have some small noticeable differences in quality and dips and stuff. But I would rather have something that's at least on par with the minimum requirements or slightly over that before I do gameplay footage. So with that in mind, I went to a site called PC Part Picker. I heard about this site from one of Total Biscuit's videos, and it's a very good site. It has pretty much every part you could ever need for building your own PC, and it has a compatibility filter on it so that if you choose parts that are incompatible, it will let you know. And using that site and working my way through the rating system of parts and the cost and everything like that, I came up with what I think is a very modest PC build that comes up to about $600 before mail-in rebates and after delivery charges. I'm not sure if there's tax charges on it because it didn't show. But yeah, about $600. And it definitely has a CPU that could be useful for capturing gameplay footage with that low-end device. Because I'm not in a good financial position to build a proper gaming PC, and because at the moment I don't really want to have an overpowered rig for just if I'm just gonna record gameplay footage, I went with what I think is decent and at the same time cost effective. Most of the parts that I chose had at least a 4-star rating from a lot of people. So I think that the parts that I chose were pretty good. So what I want from you all is, if you know anything about building computers, to just take a look at what I chose and keep in mind that I'm not trying to go for a PC that will match current gen consoles or exceed them. I'm trying to get a PC that will work, that I could use to build my channel up a bit and later in the future build on. So I'm going to post a link in the description bar, and if that and also a picture in case that doesn't work of the parts that I chose, and you can give your opinions on it, see if it's decent, or if you think it's not going to work at all. Just let me know, and then I can adjust stuff and hopefully save for my PC, which, given my situation, will be a while, probably a few months. But it's always good to have something to work towards, and hopefully this means that I'll be able to provide you all with something better than just these videos. On the plus side, however, I have a PS4, So if I don't get the PC built by the time Bloodborne comes out, all I'll have to do is buy a camera for the PS4, and I could stream Bloodborne. Wouldn't that be awesome? So yeah, that's all I have to say for today, and I look forward to hearing your opinions. And tell me what you think about the difficulty of the Souls games. Do you think that Dark Souls 2 is hard at all, or is Dark Souls 1 harder? If you have played Demon Souls, let me know if you think that that's the most difficult game in the series. If you haven't, and you have a PS3, I really suggest you buy it. It's $20 on PSN. Just go to your store, buy a PSN card, put the code in, buy the game. It's worth it, trust me. But, and I stress this, be very afraid of my Scraping Spear, Acid Cloud, and Storm Ruler build. I will break your stuff, especially if you don't praise the sun.